Bonjour, aujourd'hui c'est le mardi 5 mai. Donc d'abord, je vais vous parler des aperçus culturels, puis ensuite je vais vous expliquer ce qu'il faut faire pour cette semaine et la semaine prochaine, et voir la semaine suivante. Et puis un petit rappel. So far I've received some great submissions for the aperçu culturel project. Keep them coming. So I've seen some really great submissions on Switzerland, Quebec, Cameroon, really cool stuff. Um, So please keep those coming. And again, I was really hoping this would be a great way for you to engage with kind of French speaking culture on your terms, right? So you get to choose what you want to focus on and you get to really engage with that stuff. So I hope that you have fun with it, or at the very least that it's kind of fulfilling, and that it gives you a chance to kind of explore on your own terms. I really look forward to seeing what you come up with. If you haven't turned it in yet, please do get that into me, right? Because it's extra. This can only help your grade. It's not going to hurt your grade at all. It can only help your grade. So if you're looking for 30 out of 30, if you're looking for that full credit to really get the most out of it, you just have to basically check off the boxes. And I'll walk you through them right now just to make sure that they're clear. So make sure you're given a basic overview of the country that you chose. That means what's the population? Where is it in the world? Is there a main religion, or is religion not important in the country? Is there a certain climate that's predominant? And you want to do that in French, right? It doesn't have to be super elaborate, but just very basic info. And that allows you to practice numbers, it allows you to practice a lot of different things in French. And then you want to give me three relevant facts about the country's culture. And you're going to have chosen one of the units, right? So maybe you chose the fashion unit, or maybe you chose the housing unit, or the sports unit, or the school unit. So one of those units, right? So talk about the country's culture in French. So just three relevant facts. And be sure to show me that you've mastered the vocabulary, right? So that's really what I'm looking for is, okay, what did you find? I'm really curious to hear about what you found about housing in Senegal, I don't know, in French, but then also like, okay, can you use the vocabulary of prepositions? Can you use the vocabulary of the different rooms in a house and so on and so forth? And then including, visual stuff to help, right? So photos can be really helpful to engage with stuff. Videos, websites. So I'm asking for two of each of those minimum. Um, just to again encourage you to include that. You're probably going to encounter a lot of these things as you're doing this kind of scavenger hunt. So you would just be including some of the stuff that you found, showing me kind of what you already found. And then finally, in English, I think I'd asked for you to do this in French, but I want you to do it in English because it might be asking too much for you. Uh, you can do this in English, but a comparison of that culture and your home culture. So maybe you're talking about sports culture in Haiti, right? Haiti. You're talking about sports culture in Haiti. Okay, cool. Compare that with your own culture of sports. Maybe you come from the US, and so you are really familiar with American football or American basketball, right? Is that big in Haiti? Is that a big part of the Haitian sports culture, or is it a different sport? Um, how does that look different? How do they gather, right? Do they gather in stadiums like we do? Um, is there different traditions? Like here in the U.S., there's baseball and football, and people do tailgating, right? That's a relevant sports culture thing that you would compare and say like, oh, do they do the same thing in this other country? So that's just an example, okay? So again, uh, this is a great boost to your grade if you're looking for that for semester two. And all you need to do is just check these boxes before turning it in. And if you have any questions, just reach out. So this week and next week, I want you to feed your ears, right? Uh, I was thinking this would be a really great way to again continue that process of low stakes, right? I'm not asking for a huge project, low stakes, but a way for you to engage with the culture, engage with French speaking culture on your terms, right? So, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to check out a few different podcasts, pick a podcast, and listen to several episodes. So I'll ask you to listen to several episodes of a podcast in French and then respond to some questions in English. You'll submit a reflection or report in English on or around May 19th. If you want to do it before, cool. If you want to do it on May 19th, cool. If you want to do a little after, that's cool too, right? So it's kind of roughly May 19th. So the goals of this is to expose you to the French language as spoken by native speakers, right? Because these are podcasts, to allow you to practice listening for fragments to understand a larger meaning. So a lot of these podcasts, these are going to be people making audio content for native French speakers. So they're not necessarily slowing it down for people who don't speak the language. So it might be frustrating at first, but again, just think of it as like taking a bath in the language, right? You're immersing yourself in the French language and just soaking as much as you can in and understanding what you can, even if that's only 20%, right? And it also gives you the opportunity to build some vocabulary around your passions or interests. And I'll talk about that more on Thursday, okay? But the idea is, I'm not going to teach you new content with distance learning, but this is an awesome way to engage on something on your terms. And that's the beautiful thing with language is it transcends cultures, it transcends norms and stuff like that we can engage on stuff on our own terms. So if you're really into music, you can find a podcast about music. If you're really into movies, you can find that. If you're really into tech, cool. Like sports, cool, right? So this will be a really great opportunity for those of you who have those passions. So again, to be more specific, I'm going to ask you to listen to 3 to 5 episodes, right? Three is the minimum. If you're really feeling it, 5 episodes, even more, sure. But then I'm going to ask you to write 4 to 10 sentences in English about each one. So 4 would be the minimum, right, to answer these questions. But basically, I'm giving you these questions to think about as you're listening to the podcast and as you're kind of processing. So, like, first, why did you choose this podcast, right? And so you're answering in English. Why? What drew you to it? Was it the host? Was it the subject? Was it the name? Which parts did you understand? And this is really important, right? Because earlier I said you may only understand 20%. That's okay. Try to identify. Okay, well, what did I understand? Oh, I understood this part where they were talking about this. Oh, because I know that vocabulary. And then, oh, which parts didn't you understand? Oh, they were saying these weird things and I couldn't pick up on it. They might be using a verb tense that you don't know, and that could be really confusing. You might not understand that, right? And that's okay. But if you identify, all right, well, this part I understand, this part I don't, you can kind of make better sense of it. And I'm really curious, right? I'm really curious. I expect some surprise with that, where it's like, oh, I could understand a lot more than I expected. And then how did you feel while you listened, right? So for me, I'd love for you to go in and come out of this feeling great, right? For you to go in and explore these podcasts and come out like, wow, this is so cool. And oh, I'm so stoked to keep listening. Or oh, I'm so stoked to like pick up on these threads or these things that were mentioned in the podcast. That's ideal. But let's be real, you might be frustrated by this, or maybe as you're listening, you'll feel bored, right? But you might also feel empowered, like, oh man, I didn't know I knew this much French, or oh, I didn't realize I could understand this much French, or oh gosh, they're talking about this thing, and I'm really curious. I really look forward to following up on that, right? So try to be open to that, and I really look forward to hearing that, right? To hearing back from you about that. And then if you had to ask the podcasters 3 questions, what would you ask them? So hopefully this is like kind of a more kind of you're taking an active role where it's like, oh, you're going to reach out to the podcasters and ask these questions. Not necessarily, right? But hypothetically, okay, imagine you're asking them. What would you ask them? So I'll give some more details about how to get most out of this assignment on Thursday. If you're really eager to get started, here's some places to begin your search. I'll include this PowerPoint on Canvas. If you're really, really curious, you can go through it, and I've outlined some things for you, right? Basically 2 websites. One website where it's a list of podcasts with a bunch of great cultural points, and another website that's more like learning French. So it's more catering to people who are learning French, right? So if you're feeling more comfortable with that, that's cool. All right. And that's it. So again, start kind of thinking about that. If you are interested, you can feel free to go ahead and get started. Again, I'll put this PowerPoint, I'll put some links up to these websites. This is a BuzzFeed article from 2017 by Jennifer Pajemi with just a compilation of the best podcasts in French. It's got all kinds of stuff, all kinds of subjects, right? So there's a QR code for that website. Again, I'll put the link on Canvas. And then if you're looking for something more directed towards language learners, this is the alternative, right? Coffee Bake French. And y'all are about here. So I picked out a few lessons, and again, I'll go through this more on Thursday. So there's a QR code for Coffee Break French. Um, Again, I'll talk about this more on Thursday. Most important is that you kind of start thinking about this. You start thinking about, okay, what would I be looking for in a podcast in French? Would I be looking for a podcast catering to non-native speakers learning French? Or are you ready to take that dive and check out a podcast about video games, sports, cinema, music, technology, society, politics, things like that? Okay, because you got a lot of options. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about this a little bit more with y'all. Again, more info on Thursday. And until then, take good care. I'm thinking about y'all. And à mardi.